just admit a few more people here and then I will get going.
Sure.
Okay, so welcome and thank you for attending. Here are a few guidelines for tonight's meeting. First of all, I think you all know that this meeting is being recorded, so if you don't want to be seen, turn off your video. If you're not a committee member, please sign in. Enter your name and your affiliation if relevant, and any item you wish to speak to in the chat box. Use the chat box if you have a technical issue. Do not use the chat box for substantive comments. Raise your hand for those. Please stay muted unless you're speaking. And this is how you mute. On your desktop computer, you have a microphone button. You can click it and it turns red, and click it again and it turns white. And when it's white, you're unmuted. On a phone, you tap the mute icon at the bottom of your screen. Now, the most confusing thing in Zoom is raising your hand, so pay attention. On a desktop computer, click Participants at the bottom of your screen. Go to the bottom of the list and click the button labeled Raise Hand. On a phone, press *9. After each presentation, the chair will take some comments and questions from board members first, then the public. You'll have a 2-minute time limit. The committee will then formulate and pass a resolution. Everybody happy with how to mute and unmute? I'll show you a picture in case you need a little bit more. That's the participant button. At the bottom of the list, you'll see the raise hand. Okay.
Thank you, Linda.
So we don't have to look at that anymore.
Okay. As Linda mentioned before, the chat box is really only for checking in and also ask technical questions. So please do not use the chat box to share your point of view or discuss any issue, or you will be removed from the meeting if you do so. This is just our policy. And before we start our discussion tonight, I just wanted to welcome Troy Valais to join our Land Use Committee. I believe Troy, this is his first official meeting with Land Use, although he was also present at our June meeting. Is that right, Troy? Troy, we may have to unmute Troy. Hi, Troy. Oh, looks like he's frozen. Okay, all right. So our first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes for our June meeting. Michael, where's Michael? Michael, can you do a roll calling to see if everyone approves, opposed, abstain, and present, not voting at the same time, taking the attendance, please?
Sure. Jackie?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Michael, yes. Dominic? I don't think I saw Dominic. I don't know.
No.
No. He's absent. Jonathan Chu?
Yes.
Thank you, Jonathan. Herman Hewitt?
Yes.
Thank you, Herman. Trevor Holland?
Yes.
Thank you, Trevor. Lisa Kaplan?
Yes.
Thanks, Lisa. Olympia Kazi?
Yes.
Thanks, Olympia. Damaris Reyes? I don't see her on, so I'll mark as absent. Troy Velez?
Present.
Thank you, Troy. Steve Herrick, I think I saw.
Yes.
Thank you, Steve. And then Tim Laughlin. It's not on. All right, we're all set. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. And next item is the DCAS update on 70 Mulberry Street. This is the update after our June 25th town hall where Linda and I both attended. And we have Quentin from DCAS tonight. And after his update and also his presentation and also the committee session, I would take 4 to 5 questions from the public. And Quentin, I'm seeing you here. So it's okay. Quentin, you are already unmuted.
Thanks, Jackie. So good evening. I want to start by thanking you, Jackie, and the Community Board and Land Use Committee, as well as the local elected officials for their support over the past 6 months. And I also want to acknowledge the 5 tenants of 70 Mulberry for their continued commitment and working with DCAS over these past couple of months as well. And finally, I want to touch base on the community input and recognize all those who have sent in letters, emails, some phone calls, expressing their support for 70 Mulberry. This is truly a historic site, and because of everyone's involvement, this administration has put forth the resources needed to preserve its rich history. Now, as you know, on July 2nd, the mayor and DCAS announced the allocation of $80 million to help rebuild this site, and that the city would prioritize options to preserve what is salvageable from the remaining structure. Now, how this site will be redeveloped will be guided by the community. In addition to the allocation of resources for its redevelopment, the administration has also provided funding for a community visioning process. We have established an advisory committee that will help shape this process. The committee has already been in formation and has met, and it's comprised of representatives from both the CB3, local elected officials, and the 5 tenants. Together, they have developed the scope of work that went out on 7/10, and the vendor proposals to that scope of work are due on July 24th. The community visioning process is expected to begin this summer and stretch into the fall. Community visioning will gather public input about the future of the site and provide a forum to discuss all the available options for its redevelopment. Now, I know there's a lot of work ahead of us, but we are excited about collaborating with all the stakeholders involved. We believe that we have in place the resources needed to ensure that this site will serve as a beacon for current and future Chinatown residents. So I thank you for this opportunity to provide a brief update, and I'll turn it back over to you, Jackie.
Thank you, Quinton. Committee members, do you have any questions for Quinton? Olympia, you want to raise your hand?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
So just a clarification, do you want to explain what is this advisory board? What was the criteria you used, how many members, etc.?
Sure. So as I mentioned in my opening remarks, as well as what we put out in the press release, so the advisory board is encompasses both all 5 tenants. Jackie also serves on the advisory board as a representative from Community Board 3, as well as so I guess I can name the electeds. So someone from the Congresswoman's office, State Senator's office, Assemblywoman's office, as well as the local elected official, Manhattan Borough President Brewer's office, as well as Councilwoman Chen's office.
I mean, since the concerns and the various debates included a lot of groups that deal with preservation, do you have someone in the advisory board that represents this interest?
So there is no one on the advisory board or advisory committee that is from any of the industry groups or community groups. So just to kind of go, Olympia, to kind of the purpose of the advisory board or advisory committee, which was 3, and bold, I guess I can put it in 3 things. One was to develop the scope of the vendor so that we developed the scope that would actually go out so that vendors could actually, so that we could seek a vendor to facilitate the process. The second was to actually help the vendor actually identify stakeholders in the community, such as the preservation group, such as businesses, such as residents, to be able to engage in this process. And the third is to actually receive the final report from the vendor. So those are the 3 things for the advisory. This is not the full on community engagement process. Again, the advisory group is there to influence both the scope of work, understand the scope of work, select the vendor that will facilitate the process, and then provide advice on that. But this is not the group that is going to make the decision.
Can you explain what is a vendor in this process? Like a vendor, someone who sells?
No, it's a consultant.
Oh, so it's a company vendor?
Correct. So remember in our last town hall, I mentioned that we were going to embark on this process and that the city would hire a consultant. I'm using the word vendor, but it's a consultant, a facilitator that would do that. And this advisory.
So it's a planning consultant that helps participatory design. That's what you mean?
No, ma'am. It's a community engagement consultant.
Okay. Thank you. Just to understand, because a vendor could be anything.
Yeah, I understand.
Thank you, Olympia.
I was using the word vendor, but consultant is probably would resonate as well.
Other committee members, do you have questions? Linda. Linda, you are mute.
Yeah, as host, I cannot hit the raise hand button, so indulge me. Now, my question is, they're in the process of deciding what to do in the 90-day process. One of the things we asked for in our original resolution was a preservation assessment. How is that coming?
Are you asking, have we started preservation
Have you
assessment?
engaged a consultant, an engineer to do a preservation assessment?
No, we have not engaged an engineer to do a preservation assessment.
Is that planned?
We are listening to I will say that part of the engagement process was to consider that. We haven't even hired or brought on board a consultant yet. And so we haven't had the opportunity to even engage any of those that have offered those services yet.
Okay, well, I'm just concerned because time has gone by and it was in our original resolution that we wanted that assessment made, so that will help the whole community decide what to do.
Understood. What we have committed, as I announced in the previous meeting that I appeared before you guys, was that we would halt demolition to the 3rd floor. And so I think that does give us the opportunity to consider that request. And hopefully that is something that both the community rallies behind, as well as something that we're able to do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Lisa, do you want to ask the question you asked me a couple of days ago, or you don't? Okay, so looks like she is not going to ask the
I
question.
was trying to unmute. I think wasn't my question just whether a preservationist had gone in, and that's what Linda just asked.
Okay, thank you,
I am
Lisa.
disappointed to hear that they haven't, because that was the community board's resolution, despite what might go on with the community engagement process. I think the community board's resolution still stands.
Thank you, Lisa. And do we have other committee members want to ask questions? If not, I want to move to the public session. Thank you. The first one is Richard Moses. Linda, can you unmute Richard, please?
I just unmuted myself, thanks.
Oh.
Hi, and thank you. My question is, it seems as if there's still a little bit of uncertainty about exactly what happens when in this process. And it would be very helpful, I think, to have a written schedule with all of the steps broken down one by one, and a target date when you'd be moving to the next step. Has something like that been considered, and is that possible to provide that to the public?
So we have considered it. The most immediate next step is both getting the consultant on board so that we can start the visioning process. And once we get the consultant on board, one of the deliverables for the consultant is to come up with a timeline of engagement. So it has been considered. That was also added into the scope of work for the consultant, and that will be publicized.
Thank you, Quentin. And before I open up to the public session, I should have mentioned that each speaker has 2 minutes to ask questions or make a comment. So you can either make a comment or ask questions, and try not to ask multiple questions at the same time or to go back and forth with the presenters and make it like a private conversation. So thank you, Richard. And I'm gonna lower your hand. How do I do this? Oh, I cannot do this. Linda can do it. Thank you. And next question is Colin.
Okay, this is a question for Mr. Haynes. A month ago, I had asked you a question regarding the construction wall along Mulberry Street and Bayard Street. Since we're going to reach the 3rd floor in roughly 2 weeks or so, has the city, either DOT and the board, the DOB made a determination whether that wall is going to be removed and Mulberry Street and Bayard Street reopened for vehicular traffic? Thank you.
Thank you, Carlin. So yes, we have considered. The goal is to remove the fencing on Bayard, and when I say remove, I actually should use the phrase push back, so that we are able to open 1 lane on Bayard Street. That will allow traffic, or at least open up, and also give space for the area businesses. So that yes, that is the plan.
I have a quick follow-up then.
Sure.
Why open it up for 1 lane of traffic only when the imminent danger of any building collapse has been removed and the building would be sealed?
Yeah, so it's also for site protection and security. So what we were able to work out with both the contractor and the relevant authorities is that even because it still is an active construction site, that there had to be some fencing and there had to be a certain distance between the actual building and the fence where it's kind of blocked off. And so that's what we were able to get, at least able to open up one of the lanes.
Thank you, Colin. And next question is Gatre, if I hope I say your name correctly.
Is it Guido Hartray?
Yep.
Hi, thank you. So my name is Guido Hartray. I'm an architect and I've worked on several similar preservation projects, including the Pratt Institute Higgins Hall, which was a project that we restored after a fire. I would like to support what the community members have been saying, the community board members, in terms of getting some kind of preservation assessment of this site. I do feel like that to have a public discussion of what the community wants to do with the site, you really need the context of knowing what's possible in terms of preservation. And I think that it's just really going to inform that discussion. Without that, you know, the potential costs and benefits of preservation versus other options are going to be hard to determine. So also just as a member of the community, I would really feel like I would put my kind of personal support behind preservation, but I also think that to do it, you need to do it in an informed way and understand its implications and really make that part of that community outreach process that I'm very glad to see you doing.
That looks like a statement then a comment. Yeah, it's a comment. And next I have Sinat Westworth. I hope I say your name correctly.
Yes, it's Sanad Wadsworth. Thank you. I just want to say thank you for the presentation, and I wanted to ask if this project would be covered under a PLA with DCAS.
I didn't hear sorry, Sanad, I didn't hear the last part of what you said.
A project labor agreement for DCAS. Is this a DCAS owned property? Would that be in effect? Or
are you saying for any future redevelopment of the site?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we would take that into consideration. I'm not sure of the actual details of what the actual construction will be like, but I will take that back.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last question goes to Amy. Amy Chin. Hi, Amy. Do you need to unmute yourself? Oh, she just disappeared.
Am I still here? I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, Amy.
Oh, okay. I just also want to support this preservation assessment. I think it's outside of the community envisioning process, and the information that would be gained from a preservation assessment is really critical to the discussion. But I had a question about stabilization of the remaining structure. I wanted to know, I know that construction is going to stop at the 3rd floor, but I think it's vitally important to preserve the and stabilize the structure that remains, both for safety reasons as well as preservation reasons. I wanted to know if plans are in place for doing that.
Yes. So of course we won't be leaving the building just as is. We will need to cap the building off at the 3rd floor or temporarily put something in there to ensure both site security and safety of the building. So while I can't go into the details of exactly what is going to transpire once we get to the 3rd floor, that is part of the plan to stabilize that, so there are no kind of safety issues or site security issues with the building.
I just had a other question, which is in terms of the facilitator. How will the RFP be distributed, and what is the field of consultants that would be considered?
Sure. So the scope of work or I'm calling it the scope of work. That's so the scope of work has actually already been out to the public. So there were two qualifications. So the way the city is procuring this is through MWB small purchase. And the two requirements for a vendor to be eligible to present or put forth a proposal for this project are: one, you have to be a certified MWBE with the Small Business Services Department for the city, as well as you must be registered in Passport. And so if you meet those two criteria, you are eligible to submit a proposal for that. So that went out on the 10th, as I mentioned in my remarks, and those proposals are due back this Friday, the 24th.
Could that be shared or let us know where that is?
Sure, it actually goes out through Passport. So if you are one of the criteria is that you have to be registered in Passport. So if you are registered in Passport and you met that criteria, it already went out to you. But if you would like to see, I don't know, I'm not sure if you know of an actual business or MWBE that meets those criteria and has not gotten that. If that is the case, please reach out to me. And I want to make sure that they get that statement of work, and we can work offline on that if there was someone that didn't that meets those two criteria but didn't get the information.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Quentin. Quentin, can I pose one last question from Jan Lee, because this is a very passionate topic, and he is really the last one to ask questions.
Sorry, sorry guys, I forgot to raise my hand. Otherwise, I would have been on the list earlier. I have to compliment Mr. Hartray for adding context to this conversation, because context is everything. This building does not exist in a vacuum. We, as a property owner, I speak to a lot of property owners about the plight of Chinatown. And one of the things that we did today was take an inventory of some of the beloved businesses that have gone out of business. Amazing 66, Let's Makan, Sunhop Singh, Chatham Restaurant, 69, Bayard, Mandarin Court. The list goes on and on and on. And I want to underscore the fact that this is not a wealthy community. This isn't a wealthy community in terms of its property ownership. 85% of residents in Chinatown, of the 2,400 properties within the catchment of the bid, are rent regulated, heavily rent regulated. We have rents that are as low as $100 to $500 per resident. So with the loss of businesses that I just listed, by the time we have this conversation again, we will have added to that list. So in terms of context, I want everyone on this call, including the committee, to understand that the context must first be predicated on the survival of businesses and having the business and all of the employees of the businesses that I named. We're looking at about 150 employees that have now lost their jobs in Chinatown. So in terms of context, you have a lot of weight on your shoulders. The longer this drags out, the longer we're going to see people lose their jobs. We're going to see people who no longer have the buying ability to keep the economy of Chinatown going. And so, yes, some people may say that the building is an interesting building. Some people may say it's a beautiful building. Nothing is more beautiful than a thriving economy in Chinatown. Nothing is able to match that. And so the beauty of the building is nothing if we have empty storefronts around it. So I bring to light the context of what is all on your shoulders. The context is the survival of Chinatown, its buildings, and its $300 million tax base. $300 million annually is created in Chinatown that fills the city coffers. And if we don't contextualize the time frame of everything that is being asked for here, some of that money is not going into the city coffers. And it's great to have a building preserved, but it's not great if everything around it has disappeared. So I leave you with that. I hope, I pray that the next time we all meet, this list that I just read to you doesn't get longer. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jan. And also I want to thank Quentin and all the people who spend their time to participate in tonight's discussion. I'm sure Quentin will have some very good information to bring back to the administration. Quentin, do you have any word for us?
No, just thank you in advance for both of your participation, and we look forward to collaborating with you throughout this visioning process.
Thank you, Quentin. Thank you so much. Okay, so our next item on the agenda So I moved the agenda a little bit. This item on the agenda, I'm not sure if it was a second or third, but I moved it up a little bit. It is going to be the development plan for 290 Henry Street, affordable housing at the annex of St. Augustine's Church on Madison Street side. St. Augustine Church is a landmark, and developer plans to build 100% affordable units. And this is going to be their first time to provide the details of their plan to CB3. And the presenter is Miss Jessica Loser. Jessica.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi,
Jessica.
Jackie. Thank you.
Hi. I think I met you. I feel like you look familiar to me. I might have met you somewhere before.
I think I've met you before too. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, Lisa. Hi, everybody.
Why
A
is
lot
that?
of familiar
Hi,
faces.
Jessica.
I spent it feels like a lifetime ago, but Jackie, I spent about 10 years or 12 years on the Lower East Side, representing representing
Okay.
Shelley
Oh,
Silver,
okay.
and also working for the community board, and also had the honor of being on the CB3 SPURA subcommittee, which was an honor for me. But I'm here tonight representing St. Augustine. And thank you for letting us present now. We're not here asking for a resolution or for any approvals, but just as the church is developing their plans, they wanted to keep the community board informed and part of the process. The application's already been shown to the council member's office, and we just want to keep everybody informed. I want to introduce our team. I don't know if you can see everyone sort of at the same time, but just to let you know who's here on behalf of the project. We have Father Nat St. Pierre from St. Augustine, myself, Jessica Loser, from the law firm of Goldstein and Hall. And on the development team, we have Jack Heaney and John Waters, and then Jack Esterson from Think Architects. So 2 Jacks, but we'll try and keep it light. Father Nat, if you could tell us a little bit about the state of the church, the state of the congregation, and then, you know, how COVID has made things, you know, better or worse, your call. Father Nat, can you unmute yourself, or can we unmute you? There we go.
Thank you so very much, Jessica, and thank you to CB3 for welcoming us. St. Augustine has been in the community for almost 195 years. The building is a historic landmark. We are one of the major Black congregation of the Episcopal Diocese of New York. And we are also the proud host of 2 slave galleries in our sanctuaries. So I arrived there, I would say 8 years ago, and we were already thinking about redeveloping our land, but because there was a change in the leadership, that project was on ice for quite a while, and it was resurrected. Why? Because the church is not as viable as it used to be. We had lots of programs in the community that we have lost the means to carry. And our congregation being in decline, we are not really hoping to bounce back to the place where we were before and have the financial means to even support the historic landmark that we are right now. This building is more than 190 years old, so there is a demand on keeping it up, roofing issues, boiler issues, all kinds of challenges, and not having the support of a vital congregation able to contribute the financial means in order to do that, we have to turn to a different model of support. That's where we contacted Denham Wolf and Goldenstein, and also Fulcrum to see what can be developed on site for us to regain some viability and remain in the community and preserve the site that is an historic building of the Lower East Side.
Thank you, Father Nat. And just to, really, I think the big takeaway is that while the church does need an influx to their resources and into their finances, they want to do that through the development of affordable housing, so that it's not just financial resources for the congregation, but that it's an asset for the community. And that was an important part when the vestry is like a board of directors for the church, when they were developing their plans and figuring out how they were going to solicit bids from developers. It was really focusing on affordable housing development. The other point that I wanted to highlight is that we're here obviously because the development plans are not going to be fully as of right, but we're not asking for a rezoning. Rather, we're asking for an envelope waiver. If the church wasn't there, if the historic, very, very old and very, very beautiful church wasn't there, then a fully efficient affordable housing building could be built on the site pretty easily. But because we're preserving the church and then building around it, it's a very, very tightly constrained site. And so a height waiver will allow the future affordable housing building to use all of the as of right floor area on the site. So just sort of keep that in mind as we're going through the presentation. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn the screen over to Jack Heaney and Jack to show you what we have on the church.
And Linda, I believe Jack has a PowerPoint, so you may want to make him the co-host. Thank you.
Do you see him, Linda?
I see him, yeah.
Great.
Great.
All right, Jack Heaney.
Right, well,
I don't see what he's sharing.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Father Nat. Thank you to CB3, especially to Jackie and Linda for getting us on the schedule at such short notice. We have put together a brief presentation that we previously shared with Department of City Planning, Councilwoman Rivera's office, and Landmarks Commission. So I'm going to share my screen now. Oh, I'm still disabled, Linda.
I'm sorry, I clicked the wrong Jack.
No worries.
They move, you know, it's a little tricky. How's that?
Let's try it. That worked. Thank you. Okay, fortunately, let's do this. Okay, start at the beginning. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Great.
So the first few slides are just some context slides to show you the location for folks who may not be familiar with exactly where the St. Augustine is. So as some orientation, the site is between Henry and Madison Street. Close, here's Grand and East Broadway. PS 134 is across the street. And the Vladeck homes are here to the south. Here's an aerial perspective. Again, Vladeck homes is orientation. PS 134 is here. This is Henry. This is Madison. Here's some historical photos of the church and one current one. This is actually a photo of the slave galleries, which Father Nat had referenced in his introduction. Here's an old photo of the church with its former steeple. So the non-historic portion of the site includes this annex building here, completed in 1962. So in order to build the affordable housing we're proposing, this portion will be demolished, but the historic church will be preserved and restored. I think the church was originally completed in 1829 in a Federalist style with some Gothic details. You can see some of the arch windows in the photos I'm about to show. The zoning district is R72 with a commercial overlay. Again, here's an aerial perspective showing the annex building in relation to the historic church. Here are some on-the-ground photos. This is the annex building, picture of the historic church. You can see those Gothic arch windows. Here's a church picture of the facade. This is an ADA accessible courtyard that we'll be preserving and enhancing to connect the old church to the new development. Again, some more context photos. Here's a picture of the interior. So as discussed, our goal here was to take all the available floor area for the site and create a massing, a building that would allow us to fully utilize the number of affordable housing units that are available, while also taking advantage of AIRS, which is an acronym for senior housing. So the result, the program is 130 units with about 5,000 square feet of ground floor retail and 4,000 square feet of new community facility space that would be used by St. Augustine Church. And you can see the two massing studies on the left, and to the right are just the typical floor plates for how the building would lay out on the various stories. And I think this is actually a good transition point for Jack Esterson with Think Architects to talk a bit about the thought process that went into the massing that's being proposed, and specifically as it relates to the historic church.
Right. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks everybody for having us.
1 second, can I interrupt something? Jackie, do you
Yes.
have, because it's very hard to follow, they're very small, we can't read it. Is there a
Right.
way to email us the PDF? This way we can understand what we're seeing, because we can't follow.
Yeah, Olympia, I don't have the illustration. I don't have the file.
Okay.
Yeah, what I could do is that I could ask them to provide the material to us after the presentation, but right now I don't have it.
Thank you.
Is the problem that you can't see the images? And Jack, is there a way to blow them up from your screen or
So,
not?
so one Zoom strategy would be to switch from gallery view to speaker view. I think that would, then it would take up a larger portion of your screen.
Good idea.
Yeah, that's not resolving the issue, don't worry.
No,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, well,
You may continue, Jack. Thank you.
I'm sorry for that. We're getting really accustomed to designing taller buildings next to historic buildings or in low-rise neighborhoods, and always thinking about how do we strategize around that so it's not just another slab or not an empathetic structure slammed up against a nice church. So we are just starting. I mean, these are really conceptual zoning diagrams. We are, not really considered, it's obviously not developed architecturally, but it's kind of a baby step to look at the height and the massing and perhaps the interplay of masses interconnecting, the use of at least two different materials to sort of break down the mass of the building and make it more empathetic with the church. So the image on the top is, and there's some following pages that have bigger images.
And Jack, just let me know when you
Madison.
want me to switch to the next slide. So.
Okay, just stay on this one for a moment.
Okay.
The image on the upper left it is on the Madison Street side, and it's showing a setback, I believe it's a 7th floor, which then hops up as a dorm, what's referred to as a dormer. And the image on the bottom left is indicating a 7-story setback that kind of wraps around the building. And it's about at the same height as the church steeple. And we're using 2 tones to indicate that the lower portion, I mean, we're not likely to use the 19th century schist stone that was used to build the church. But when it comes to selecting materials, perhaps it has a texture and a coloration that's very similar. We're hardly at that point yet, but that lower mass that's projecting has at least 2 functions. One is to, as Jack said, to utilize all the FAR, but also to relate to the scale of the church. And so let's go to the next image. And the next image, the set of images is really more on the street level, of course. So the image on the left is illustrating the scale of that lower piece that would visually connect to the church. And then the tower sort of interlocks into it and would be possibly a lighter color material. and lighter in spirit, possibly larger windows. We're really not at that level. What we do is we tend to sort of say, okay, here is the massing, and it gets approved, there's an agreement, and then we go on to really start looking at proportions and windows and materials and details. The image on the left is seen from Henry Street, and we've made an attempt to really disconnect the building from the church in a way that the current annex does not do. The annex kind of connects in a, I would say, slightly awkward way. It wraps around the corner of the church, actually blocking one of the Gothic windows. So our strategy, after demolishing the annex, is to pull away and let the church breathe again. So the image on the left shows the lower extension actually separated from the church, as opposed to the current annex. Yeah, thank you. That's a good segue to that image, which is more of an aerial, sort of an aerial view. But the purpose of the thing to see, but there's a dotted area of the left side of the church, and the current annex is butting up against that corner, blocking that 20-foot high Gothic window. So from the interior, it's blocked up right now. There are not 5 Gothic windows on that side, there are 4. So by removing the annex and pushing the new development back, revealed away from the church with possibly a glass recessed entryway, it allows the church to finally stand on its own independently, and there would obviously be a restoration required at that corner with the cornice, and we don't really know what the stone is like underneath. And then the undertaking, really part of a preservation program for the church building. So we would weave that into that program. Just a little bit of above that space is a green area, which is actually the roof of the commercial space that faces Madison. It's a 1-story, rather good-sized commercial space with frontage on Madison. And the roof of that would be a garden for the residents of the building, the new building, and would provide breathing room, of course, to the back of the church, which is currently has the annex connected to it. So there would also be preservation in the back of the church, which would be now newly revealed.
And I would just add to that, Jack, that the intention with this rear landscape is to be shared by both the residents of the new building, but also the congregants of St. Augustine.
Oh, yes, of course.
Because it would be accessible from their new space, which is we're kind of representing as this blue wall here, the blue glass, transparent. So
what is the, what's the distance between the back of the church and the building?
30 feet.
30?
Which is required for light and air.
Could we also add, Jack, that by pushing that annex a little bit back, that will allow the handicap accessible now to have direct communication to the church? Because right now we have to go to the basement and lift people up via an electric chair that is not always working.
Absolutely. So yeah, again, these are not very accurate, but this screen area here represents the existing accessible plaza with an ADA ramp. So the idea is to connect this existing ADA plaza with a new entrance for St. Augustine space, which will then connect to the historic church, and there'll be an elevator within their space. So that now everything collectively becomes fully ADA accessible. So
that's right. So the next page is a larger urban context. We wanted to indicate to you the immediate surroundings. So there's the public housing on the left of the new development. There's a rather large 1-story commercial, Jack, what is it? A supermarket maybe? To right next to the development, which we think is highly likely to be developed in the future.
It's actually just a correct, it's a health clinic. I'm not sure how many tenants are in there, but there's one main health clinic. So.
And then there are two 21-story buildings about half a block away on the upper part of the page. This is all to show that there are both low-rise and high-rise buildings within half a block radius of the site. So this gives context. We are making every effort to, while using all the FAR, to also be empathetic architecturally with the church in mass and in detail as we move forward. And that'll take, it'll manifest itself in many ways, both large and small. And every decision will be looked through the lens of how does it relate and work with the historic church building. And I think that, Jack, do you have anything else?
I do. Just before we open it up to not to the design portion, but before we open it up to questions, again, at the beginning of the presentation, Jessica mentioned this will be a 100% affordable project. We intend to finance it through HPD's mix and match program. So of the 130 units that would be proposed, 70% would actually be at less than 80% of AMI, with the highest tier being at 100% of AMI. And as part of the units that are below 80% of AMI, that also includes a number of senior units that would be at 30 to 40% of AMI. And that's it. So now we're open to questions.
Yeah, thank you, Jack, Jack. And the one who use cell phones to dial in, your signal is not very strong. It keep breaking up. I don't know if other committee members see the same problem. I wasn't listening to that very well, but it's okay. Just a quick question before opening up. What is the envelope waiver that you are seeking?
So it's basically a Department of City Planning special permit that's specific to historic landmark buildings to allow a waiver in certain bulk rules, but no increase of floor area to accommodate the unused floor area specific to that historic structure. So basically, it allows adjoining buildings on a development site to utilize unused air rights over a landmark building.
I have a couple other questions, but I'll let committee members to go first. Committee members? Olympia.
The obvious question is, will that trigger a ULURP?
Yes.
Yeah, so that would have been helpful in the beginning of your presentation to say that even though today you're not asking a reso, that's why we're reviewing this project. And then it would also be helpful to receive the details that pertain to the ULURP. So of course, it's always interesting to hear the architectural details and stuff, but ahead of time. So if you come to present again to us, maybe a PDF before that we can review and understand better these breakdowns would be very helpful.
Understood, and we would intend to do that.
Yeah, and just to be clear, a lot of those details aren't determined yet, and when we have everything ironed out, then we can present information to the community board, and it will be done in advance so that you have time to review it. This really is just informational so that we can get sort of immediate reactions and feedback from the community.
Other committee members?
They have their hands up in the chat, Jackie.
Oh.
There are many of them.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
There is
in the chat.
Yeah, there is Trevor, Mike, Damaris, and Lisa.
How come I don't see any of them?
Not the chat. The
oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, Trevor. I scrolled the participant names too high, so I didn't see them. I'm sorry, Trevor.
Just a quick question, and it may have been addressed earlier on. The ownership structure of this building. Who's going to own it? And I don't imagine you have the management structure worked out, but the ownership structure?
It's a good question. We actually didn't clarify. So this will be structured as a ground lease, or at least half of the portion of the site where the new building will go will be ground leased to our team from St. Augustine.
So that the church will retain ownership, underlying ownership of the site.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Michael? Michael Perlis?
Sorry, I was taking notes.
That's okay, thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. I just have a few quick questions. So you said you're going to be using the mix and match program. Do you have the schedule of the breakdown of units and AMIs, or is that still under works? And
that's still under review with HPD.
Okay, and
but go ahead.
It's temporarily affordable, right? It's not permanently affordable, from what I understand of the mix and match program.
Well, so actually, because we have to go through, actually, I don't know if that triggers MIH or not, but the length of the time of the affordability will be at least 40 years. That's sort of the typical length of an HPD regulatory agreement. But the reality is the building will likely be affordable well past that, because the subsidy mortgages that go into these projects typically just get rolled over for another 30 years when the term comes due. So.
Okay, and are you going to work and try to have a NYCHA preference because this site is so close to the Vladeck houses?
Yes, it's actually something we've discussed internally. But again, because it's still early stages, we want to confirm the program and the AMI mix with HPD before we reach out to NYCHA. But we especially for the senior component, we think that would be a great fit.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. And next is Damaris.
Hi, I think most folks answered most of what I was going to ask, but I just have a couple of clarifying points. Since you haven't determined all the AMIs, my question was: do you anticipate that the deepest level of affordability for the senior units will be at 30% of AMI?
Yes. And I actually forgot to add that as part of the AMI mix, there will be 15% formerly homeless as well, integrated into the project.
And do you know what the AMI will be for them?
So it's not restricted to an AMI, but it's set to, I guess what they refer to as shelter rents. So I think it's like a studio in that tier is about $215 per month.
Okay. I mean, I'm asking because 30% is still high for many seniors.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the 20s, and most seniors in the neighborhood live on a fixed income.
Yep.
What information can you share with us about the mix of units? Like, are you looking to have a certain amount of 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom studios, that kind of stuff?
So again, there are term sheet prescriptions for the ratio. Obviously, because there'll be seniors integrated into this project, we'll have probably about 25%, maybe 30% of studios to accommodate that population. But I think again, once we've confirmed the program with HPD and gotten their blessing, the next time we come before CB3, we're happy to present the full unit mix and AMI breakdown.
All right, thank you.
Next is Lisa.
Yeah, some of my questions were asked, but I guess I'd like to understand a little bit more how the church is benefiting from this proposal. Is it just a share of the original development rights, or is it an ongoing payment? How does that relationship work?
Yep. So they'll be given consideration for contributing the land a few different ways. One is through a ground lease, so there will be an annual ground lease payment to the church that escalates annually. We actually have a profit participation clause in our agreement with the church, where if the project gets refinanced or if we bring in new tax credits, there is the ability for the church to participate in some of that upside down the road. In the shorter term, there's an allowance for restoring the church And as part of the project, we're proposing 4,000 square feet of new community facility for the church, and that would be deeded over to them at no cost. So that, again, it's part of their compensation.
Thank you.
And Olim,
just to be clear, this is Jack's partner, John.
Sure.
There will be an upfront significant lease payment at the beginning of lease to go with the ongoing lease payments.
Yes, I forgot.
So if you really think about the consideration, it's an upfront payment, long-term payments to the lease, and the 4,000 square feet of permanent space that is defeased to the church upon completion.
All right, thank you, John. Forgot about that.
Olympia would ask that. Oh, Olympia, do you still have a question?
Yeah, I do. So about the height waiver, when you get a height waiver, I mean, how tall are you intending to become?
So in this proposal, in order to fully utilize the available floor area for the affordable housing, it ends up being 21 stories.
And what I want to understand is, because you said the rule is that you cannot add FAR, but you may need to just go higher up. So how does that play? Like, do you have empty space inside? Do you have higher ceilings? Like, how is that why is that working better? Why is it important to have the waiver?
Because if we were to propose an as-of-right building, it wouldn't be tall enough to accommodate all the floor area of the entire site, because essentially we have to shift all of the residential floor area to one side of the site along Madison Street. So that the as-of-right zoning envelope wouldn't be able to make use of that. So we'd be leaving affordable housing undeveloped.
Okay, so basically the current situation would give you less square footage. So the only way you can have your full square footage is by going higher, right?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
And so is there any way in which in this Euler process that you get this waiver, because the waiver doesn't put any cap. So what protects the community from future additional FAR? The regulation, like it will be written inside when you get your waiver?
Yeah, so at no point does the FAR for the site change, because that would actually require a separate ULURP action, and that's not what we're pursuing. The ULURP action we're pursuing is very specific to just getting specific bulk waivers to the height of the building, and possibly setback, but I don't think we've gotten to that level of detail yet with DCP.
All right.
And so one more thing we should see when you present the next time is to understand this bulk, like what would be the as of right and what is the new thing that we're giving you, because it wasn't super clear. I know you're freeing one of the windows, but I would like to understand this better.
Sure, understood.
Yep. Thank you. So I reached out to Vladik's house before the meeting, and also Linda reached out to Henry Street Settlement so that the neighboring organizations are aware of this development plan. And I'm going to open up to the public to take 4 or 5 questions if they have. So
Jackie, there is a community board 3 member that has a question. Is Sandra?
Hold on 1 second. For some reason, I cannot see this very well. Okay. Sandra, you may ask the question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you. My question is about the retail space. You said, has anything been determined yet? I know you said 5,000 feet is going to be dedicated.
No, again, it's still early in the process. We haven't determined exactly what type of tenants we would like, but actually as part of this process of CB3, we'd welcome the input of the type of tenants and services that CB3 would like to see for this location.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And next would be Mitchell. Mitchell Gruber.
Yeah, there was some mention of a preservation plan for the church, other than restoring that Gothic window and the wall in that area where you're removing the one-story building. What does the church need, and what is planned in terms of preservation?
So we haven't conducted a historic needs assessment report yet. That's actually going to be one of the next steps we're going to do. But with COVID, everything we've been working on the last 3 months has been delayed. So once we have that needs assessment report, it'll include items like repairing gutters, doing any masonry repair that might be needed. But overall, we don't anticipate any large scope of work beyond restoring the window as we're proposing. Simply because the church is in fairly good shape, to be honest. We're quite amazed, given it was completed in 1829. So, and of course, hats off to Father Nat for keeping it in such good shape for as long as he has.
But also, sorry, this is Jack's partner John again. Just to interject, and this leads to two of the questions. The special permit we are going through DCP and through ULURP involves feedback from a Landmarks Preservation Commission, and we're going to have a written agreement that everybody has to agree to about ongoing preservation of the church and the church's needs. So when we talk about a needs assessment, it won't be, us dictating a needs assessment from a consultant. That will be signed off on by LPC. And as part of the special permit process, it becomes codified into the approvals that we have to ensure that the needs assessment can be delivered. Even 10 years after the building is built, that the church's preservation is been accounted for.
So yeah, so it actually would affect our ability to get a C of O or a permit for the new building. So we're invested to make sure that work's completed correctly.
How many floors could you build as of right on the same footprint?
I think with heirs, it is 11 stories.
Thank you.
Next is Sinead Westworth. Sinead.
Hello, hi. I wanted to ask if there would be any prevailing wage financing for the project through the New York City Council or anything like that.
No, so currently there would be no requirement for the city funds that are proposed for prevailing wage. When the building is in operation, I think because we're over 120 units as proposed, that would trigger union staff for the building.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Damaris.
Sorry.
You have a question?
Yeah. I put myself on mute.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask two quick follow-up questions. Has there been discussion about any level of community engagement around, the retail space? And also, are there any additional amenities that you all might be considering for the building? And then last but not least, I know that you said there's a space that you're considering 4,000 square feet for St. Augustine. Is there additional space that the community can use for, other types of meetings and events?
So to answer your first part of the question, we are definitely open, and we intend to have an engagement with CB3 in the community about potential uses for the retail space. We're not opposed to creating new community facility space that would be separate than what we intend to provide for St. Augustine, but we have to identify funding sources for that and also tenants. I do want to add that early in this process, we did speak with the Henry Street settlement as well. So we've sort of begun that process of talking to local nonprofits who might be interested in such a space. But again, right now at the stage we're in, all we're currently envisioning is about 5,000 square feet of ground floor retail with the new space exclusively for St. Augustine's use.
And the last question, you didn't give me an answer. Maybe you didn't hear me. Are you also talking about any other amenities in the building for the tenants?
Yes. So I think you may have seen in the diagram the areas that were shaded in green. So there'll be two.
It was hard to see. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
looking at it on my phone.
We need, yeah, no, understood. So when we come back to you folks, after we have a more developed plan, we'll have much better looking renderings and details to share. But just conceptually, there's two outdoor recreation areas that are proposed. One is the rear yard, which will be actually shared by residents of the church as well as residents of the building, or congregants of the church and residents of the building. There'll be a second exterior outdoor recreation space on the 6th floor of the building. That would be for use by the residents. And then that actually leads to some interior recreational spaces as well. And just to add to, because we're proposing using AIRS, which is the acronym for senior housing, in the zoning code, there is a requirement for a certain percentage of interior recreation space, so which we'd be providing.
Great, thank you.
Hmm?
Thank you. And I'm going to go to David Garza first before Fanny, because he is right across the street. David?
Yeah. Hi, thank you, Jackie. And, thank you, CB3, for providing the forum to hear about this project. My name is David Garza. I'm the CEO and president of Henry Street Settlement. I know we were just mentioned, and, we certainly welcome the opportunity to sit down and see how we could provide supportive services. I don't think we've met yet, Jack. Certainly, Father Nate, how are you? Good to see you.
Very well, thank you.
To the south, our senior center exists. To the east, we have a naturally occurring retirement community for seniors. Also to the east, we have a Meals on Wheels office that provides meals. And then we have a senior companion program, all in the 3 sides surrounding the site. And then, of course, our headquarters are across the street. And then there's a federally qualified health center right next door. So I think there are amenities to engage for the residents, particularly the formerly homeless and the seniors and people who are low income. And we look forward to sit down to explore those possibilities.
We do as well, David, although I'm wearing like a t-shirt and my hair isn't, but I think we actually did meet about 1.5 years ago at your office when we first got engaged on this project. So
yeah, I'm in disguise myself.
You can't recognize John because it's,
yeah, it's actually not a mask. It's been a while since Barbara.
Okay, next,
Great.
Fanny. Fanny?
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, David. We look forward to continuing the conversation.
Yes, hi. I live in that building, Gouverneur Gardens, that other 21st floor building, right, that you guys are going to be facing. I just have a question. Do you guys have a timeline at all?
So because we have to go through the ULURP process, that typically takes 12 to 18 months, and that doesn't, take into consideration delays because of COVID. So if you consider that, and that we typically, you have, in terms of closing and the financing with HPD, it happens either in June or December of each calendar year. So I think the earliest we could close and start construction would be December 2021. But that said, that's all pre-COVID planning. As folks may have heard, HPD obviously has had some budget setbacks. So there's probably going to be additional delays as a result of that. So I suspect 2022 would be the earliest we could close and start construction.
Okay.
Olympia, you have one more question?
Yes, just because of what the Maris asked, and it reminded me of some other ULURPs. So one more comment for your next presentation. I understand that you said that you are going to have some public space amenities, but it sounded like they're going to be restricted to either the tenants of the building or the congregates. So especially, beyond the Henry Street settlement, I haven't seen the plan, but there may be other nearby people impacted in terms of light and air. So when we see the shadows, etc. So it would be important to understand if you have amenities for the overall surrounding neighbors who will be impacted with the additional 10 floors, right?
So you're correct in clarifying that the amenity spaces are specific for the residents and the congregation. We currently are not proposing any amenity spaces that would be open to the general public.
Yeah. So just in order for us to understand in the future, it's good to know who's impacted and who can benefit from you know.
Understood.
Thank you,
Which
Olympia.
which will be reviewed. Yeah, as part of is you sounds like you probably know through the Euler process there'll be that environmental study, which will look at those issues. Yeah.
It is a very interesting topic, but we also, in the interest of time, we need to move a little bit faster. Linda, and then followed by Michael.
Yeah, first of all, I admire this landmark greatly. I looked at it many times. I haven't been inside yet, but soon. And I admire also your efforts to, highlight it and make, it will certainly be better than what's there now. It looks to me like a, what do we call this thing again? We call it a envelope waiver. It's a little bit like an air rights transfer, right? Except you're on your own property.
Correct.
That's right.
And what is the zoning code that applies?
The zoning district?
Yeah, no,
It's
like an air right would be a 72-711.
yeah, I think it's actually that's the zoning resolution that the DCP falls under. I think it's 72-711.
Part of
74.
74.
74.
74. Sorry, 74. Sorry.
I couldn't understand you. One of you, please. 74.
711.
74711.
Okay, thank you.
Michael Perlis?
Yeah, I just wanted to, since the affordability levels haven't been fully determined, I just want to echo what people have been saying and say that the AMI of all of Community Board 3 is 58%. And in this area, it's likely much lower. And mix and match allows up to 120% AMI, maybe higher. I think there may be some programs that are higher. So just keeping in mind that that's twice what the full district is. Just really stressing and urging to try as much as possible to deep skew the rents and get the lowest levels of affordability possible as that's being worked out. Thanks.
Yeah, no, understood. And actually to that point, in our initial discussions with HPD, they were also mindful of that through their community group. And so they want to encourage us to cap the top AMI tier at 100% of AMI, partially in response to that issue. So, and as you probably suspect, I mean, it's a little bit of a discussion of AMI versus subsidy amounts. So it's kind of a negotiation that happens, but so far HPD has been very proactive in pushing us to propose lower AMIs and still make the budget work. So.
Thank you all. On top of what everybody asked, maybe next time you come back to Community Board 3, you could also add certain illustrations to tell us how is the shade going to be cast on Valadic House, because this is a 21-story building and is so close to Valadic houses, and I just curious to know. I mean, I guess in Euro process, you have to do that anyway, but it would be helpful for us to get an understanding before that. And also next time when you come back to CB3, please send us your plan prior to the presentation so I could share with the committee members for them to read before the meeting. That would be helpful too.
Yep, will do.
Thank you so much. That's all I have. Any other messages, any final message you want to send to, oh, I'm sorry, Linda.
Sorry. Yeah, just one more thing. Since now we're talking 74-711, that imply in an air rights transfer, you would be making a deal to provide a perpetual maintenance of the landmark. Is that part of this also?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, my partner John described that earlier. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, he mentioned it. I just wanted to be sure because I didn't realize we were talking 74-711.
Yeah.
So, in addition to bugging you here, I chair the Landmarks Committee, and we hope to see you at some point in the future.
You will see us soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming to CB3 and share your plan with us, Jack and Jessica.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, and Linda, just I don't know if you know Rick Azar, but he'll be working with us as our landmarks consultant. So.
Okay, thank you. So
okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. Good seeing you.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay, let me see. So the third item on the agenda is the district need statement So I already sent you the district misstatement last night. Linda, can you pull it out? Would that be
I think
possible?
I could, yes. Let me see.
So the DNS, this is just a draft, and it was further edited by Jim in response to the comments we made at the June meetings. I did not receive any emails from the committee members since the June meeting, so I just assume we will not be adding new items to the DNS, and we want to finalize it this month. And also, the DNS will be voted together with the budget priority in October. I mean, on one hand, we don't want to keep editing it, and on the other hand, we want to leave ourselves some time in case anything unpredictable happen in the next 2 months, so we can still add it to a DNS. Yep, so let me see.
Trying to see it here.
I cannot see it.
So Jackie, while we're trying to put this up,
Mhm.
one thing that I think is missing, and I don't know if it's in another document from Jim, is I think we had agreed that we're going to have some sort of COVID-19 disclaimer, you know, or because this is going to be, you know, the budget that comes when a lot of this impact will already be felt. Is this, Jim, something you're working on, or we have to draft something, right?
How's that, better?
It has not shown up yet.
Really?
Yep.
There's a sentence in there, Olympia, about COVID-19
Yeah.
on page 2.
Page 2, okay, so maybe I missed that one. Under
the budget priorities. Oh, it starts on the bottom of page 1, sorry.
Yeah. Okay,
COVID-19's
perfect.
impact on the real estate market, blah, blah, blah.
Yes. Yeah, I was thinking more, you know, because of all the other phenomena that may be happening, you know, vacancies, predatory takeovers, etc. We don't want to name them.
Olympia, I had this discussion with, I have your feeling as well, and I shared that thought. Jim and I actually discussed this 2 days ago. So a lot of things we cannot, because the DNS is for fiscal year 2022. So thank you, Linda. So a lot of things we cannot predict it from now. And we also do not have the experience of history to predict what's gonna happen. So I think what we can do is that we're gonna carefully, we advise the city to carefully monitor the situation and see and respond to what they need to be addressed.
But just so everyone's clear, hi everybody who doesn't know me, I'm the assistant district manager for CB3. We did add something that addresses that specifically. In the second half of that paragraph that Lisa was pointing out earlier, you know, we do acknowledge the unknowns, but we try to kind of give a caveat that this is exactly what we need to be looking at as a committee over the next 12 months as we draft resolutions and whatnot, and then be prepared to pivot as needed in the next fiscal year based on what we've seen and what maybe has not been addressed in the previous year. So that was our kind of like what me and Jackie discussed as a way to address these unknowns.
Yeah, I read it now better. I mean, I don't know. I thought we were going to put it, you know, as an opening statement, and you know, it also nexus to homelessness. I mean, there's so many tragedies that are unfolding at the same time, and they also took away a lot of money from many important, you know, legal assistance programs, etc. So I don't know, but definitely your sentence is pretty good.
Other committee members, do you have any comments and questions?
I think there's a word missing in there somewhere, though, in the last line of that paragraph he's talking about.
Yeah, there's very likely, I think, when I work in track changes, I find that I miss small grammar things.
Yeah, private equity firms that may be looking for opportunities.
There you go.
are we explicitly calling out tenant harassment?
Yes. It's mentioned.
I'm looking for it. I just, you know.
I think it's mentioned when we're talking about funding the community groups that do the community-based organizations that kind of provide services that protect tenants against that type of behavior. In the first stated need, build and preserve affordable housing. And I guess also it's sort of alluded to in the COVID paragraph as well.
So this is for the city budget, right, Jim?
Yes, it's for the fiscal year 22 budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So shouldn't we maybe make basically an open remark about how we're disappointed about the cuts that they gave to HPD and about all the services that they cut and how this is very alarming to CB3?
That would be the budget priority. Jim, you are mute.
We can't hear you.
Sorry. We acknowledge the HPD capital budget cuts in one of the paragraphs in the beginning of the COVID paragraph. You know, I mean, you could say something that, you know, you want to frame it. It's a little bit of a gray area because you want to frame this document in terms of needs. So like in that sense, the need would be, I mean, the need is affordable housing. The capital budget being slashed exacerbates that need. I don't know. I mean,
I think we already stated in the DNS the need for the affordable housing, and also regarding the cut, we can bring that up in the budget priority, which specific program they cut, and also like capital budgets in general got cut, so across the board. So we can mention that in the budget priority.
I just feel we need to have like come out strong this year because the way they went for the budget, it was very problematic what they decided to cut and not to cut.
Do you want to propose any language here?
I mean, fundamentally, what because I'm relatively, I don't know, I have COVID-19 brain, too many things are coming in, but basically, it's like I'm overstimulated with horrible things that are happening. But I would ask, maybe it could be a statement that is put in front of all of us, not just for our committee. You know what I mean? I don't know. What do you think? Is it better for our committee, within our committee, or will the CB3 has an overall introduction that then has all the various committees district needs?
So that's a good point. Something that we usually do earlier in the process, but we've held off on this year is a kind of an introduction for the entire community board. And I suppose that's probably this year maybe the best place to address the budget cuts because they do affect the work of so many different committees. Maybe that should be the theme or one of the themes that we organize the intro paragraph around is just the sort of austerity budget that all the committees work is faced with. So I don't know. I mean, I have to work on that sometime between now and October, likely next couple of weeks. But I'm going to note that at least as kind of one of the ideas for the big theme of the intro paragraph is addressing the budget cuts specifically.
Yeah.
That's usually, you know, we usually kick off the whole thing with some sort of theme like.
I really like that idea.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Michael.
Otherwise,
Michael, I see him thumbs up on the screen, but not on the chat. So I want to ask committee members, do you have any more questions on the DNS? If not, I want to propose we adopt it. We don't need to vote because it will be voted in October along with the budget budget priorities. Budget priorities will be talking about programs. So, I mean, if no other committee members have any other more comments, I'm just gonna consider that this is approved by all of us. Thank you all. And that's all we have for today. So 8 o'clock, not too bad. So
Not too shabby, Jackie. Not too shabby. I like it.
Thank you so much, Damaris. Okay, so do I have,
would you like a motion to adjourn?
yeah,
So
and Dominic joined us too. Wait,
I was late.
it's okay, and Damaris too. So we have them as the final, have them on the final vote. So who's gonna motion to adjourn the meeting?
I do.
Second, all in favor?
Second.
Aye. Well, don't we have to do a roll call?
We have to.
All right.
Figure out who's here.
Michael.
Sorry, I was doing it myself.
That's okay.
Jackie?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Michael, yes. Dominic?
Yes.
Jonathan Chu?
Yes.
Herman Hewitt?
Yes.
Thank you, Herman. Trevor Holland?
Yes.
Thank you. Lisa?
Yes.
Thank you, Lisa. Olympia?
Yes.
Ozzy? Thank you. Damaris? Grace?
Yes.
Thank you. Troy? Velez? Is Troy still here? I don't see him. Okay. Steve Herrick?
Yes.
Thank you, Steve. And Tim Laughlin, did he join? Okay, we're all set. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night.